Welcome to Unrevise. We're glad you've joined us today. Well, it appears that birds of a feather and war criminals and genociders do, in fact, stick together. Recently, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that the 19 or 20 soldiers who received the Medal of Honor for an 1890 massacre of men, women, and children deserved the medal. Although some have pushed for the medals to be rescinded, Hegseth declared that the soldiers will keep the medals. Why is that not surprising? A USA Today article, published September 26, 2025, describes the horrendous event for which the soldiers were honored. The U.S. Army herded hundreds of Lakota Sioux Americans into a clearing near Wounded Knee Creek in South Dakota, ordered them to hand over their weapons, and then opened fire, killing as many as 300 people, around half of them women and children. Yet, Hegseth still said, "We salute these U.S. soldiers' memory, we honor their service, and we will never forget what they did." It should be noted that the massacre occurred after the Lakota agreed to give up their weapons and were surrounded by 500 or so U.S. soldiers. Shortly afterward, when a Lakota discharged his weapon, whether accidentally or on purpose, the soldiers opened fire and killed an estimated 250 to 300 Lakota. More than half, or even two-thirds of the Lakota who were killed were women and children. Hegseth doesn't seem to care whether it was a massacre or not. He declared, "We're making it clear that these U.S. soldiers deserve those medals. This decision is now final, and their place in our nation's history is no longer up for debate." Hegseth also wrongly called the massacre the Battle of Wounded Knee, although it was not a battle, since most of the victims were women, children, and unarmed men. In fact, following the massacre in 1891, Major General Nelson Miles wrote, "I have never heard of a more brutal, cold-blooded massacre than that at Wounded Knee." Also, in 1990, 100 years after the bloody massacre, a concurrent resolution of the U.S. Senate and U.S. House expressed deep regret for the incident. And clearly, if the U.S. Senate and U.S. House both agreed that they needed to express regret, they knew it was a massacre. Hegseth, on the other hand, clearly wants to make people believe that these war criminals were heroes and deserve to be honored. It's not surprising that the Trump administration strives to revise the truth of American history, to hide the atrocities committed against non-white immigrants, blacks, and Native Americans, and make the whites of European descent look like the good guys. It's simply white supremacy at work, and it somewhat helps explain the U.S.'s financial, military, and diplomatic support for Israel's war crimes and genocide in Gaza and the rest of Palestine. Pushing people off their land is a U.S. tradition, and one that the U.S. government is largely proud of. The administration does not regret or even recognize the atrocities committed by white people in its own history, so it's relatively easy to overlook the Israelis' current atrocities. Yes, like birds of a feather, war criminals and genociders stick together as long as their crimes and interests don't conflict with each other's. It's telling that among the greatest supporters of Israel's war crimes and genocide have been those who also committed their own war crimes and genocides in the past, such as the U.S., Germany, and England. And those who've been the strongest critics of Israel's war crimes and genocide have been those who suffered under war criminals. Yes, the South Africans, the Irish, and many Jews who know that the so-called Jewish state of Israel has itself become a genocidal regime are some of the loudest voices against Israel's crimes. Unfortunately, the current U.S. administration is saying out loud where it stands as it continues to try to revise history at every turn, denying and hiding U.S. atrocities against non-white immigrants, blacks, and American Indians. So, will it soon be talking about the brave U.S. soldiers who committed the savage 1968 massacre of innocent civilians, mostly babies, children, women, and the elderly, at My Lai during the Vietnam War? Or will it honor the brave, courageous Americans who burned a black neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921 and murdered its innocent black citizens? Or will it build monuments to those white slavers who kidnapped and brought millions of Africans to the Americas to enslave them? Or will those members of white lynch mobs who punished those so-called uppity blacks for voting, talking to, or looking at a white person wrong, or committing some other minor infraction now get the honor they deserve? What other so-called heroes can the administration find who deserve a medal? We shall see. As their whitewashing of history continues, maybe they will also award medals to Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. I know they weren't Americans, but that's no problem. They clearly meet the main qualification. They were white. That's what happens when history is revised based on race rather than facts. Hegseth and Trump say they want everything to be based on merit. And by merit, they appear to mean wealth, influence, and whiteness. And whether they're war criminals or genociders doesn't seem to matter. No, it doesn't seem to matter at all. Be sure to visit our affiliated YouTube channel at Spirit of Resistance to listen to our new songs of resistance, including Just Like Us, You Could Have Been Our Brothers, Only the Wolves and Vultures Won, Hey, Baby Killer, and Stop the Killin'. That's YouTube at Spirit of Resistance. Thanks for visiting Unrevise.